Chapter 1. The Wait. The clock on the nightstand ticked relentlessly, each second stretching into an eternity. Evelyn sat on the edge of her bed, phone clutched in her hand, her thumb hovering over the screen. He promised. The words echoed, in her mind, like a mantra. He promised he would call tonight. Outside, the city hummed with life, cars honking, distant laughter, the occasional siren. But inside her apartment, silence pressed down on her. She had planned everything. Dinner was ready, a bottle of wine chilled in the fridge, and her suitcase sat by the door, half-packed for the trip she was supposed to take to finally bring him home. She checked her phone again. No missed calls, no texts, nothing. Evelyn exhaled, sharply, running a hand through her hair. Maybe he was just running late. Maybe traffic was bad. Maybe his phone died. She cycled through the excuses, each one sounding weaker than the last. By midnight, the food had gone cold. The wine remained unopened. The suitcase still sat there, a silent reminder of a future that now felt uncertain. She finally set her phone down, the screen dark, and curled up on the couch, staring at the ceiling. He'll call tomorrow, she told herself. He has to. Chapter 2. The Silence. Morning came with no word from Daniel. Evelyn woke up stiff, still on the couch, her phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline. She unlocked it, heart pounding, but there were no notifications, no messages, no missed calls. She dialed his number, listening as it rang once, twice, 3 times, then voicemail. His cheerful, recorded voice mocked her. "Hey, you've reached Daniel, leave a message." She didn't. Instead, she scrolled through their last messages. His words from 2 days ago stared back at her. "I can't wait to see you. Just a little longer, Evie. I promise." A knot formed in her stomach. Work was a blur. She moved through the day mechanically, her thoughts circling back to the same question. Where was he? That evening, she called again and again. Voicemail. Every time. By the 3rd day, frustration turned to anger. She typed out a furious text, her fingers trembling, but deleted it before sending. Something wasn't right. Then, a notification. Her heart leapt, but it wasn't Daniel. It was an Instagram post. Tagged. She clicked on it, and there he was, smiling, arm around a woman she didn't recognize. The caption read, "When you meet someone who changes everything." Evelyn's breath left her lungs in a rush. The date on the post? Yesterday. Chapter 3. The Truth. She stared at the photo until her vision blurred. Daniel looked happy. Really happy. The woman beside him was beautiful, bright-eyed, laughing, her head tilted toward him like they shared a secret. Evelyn's hands shook as she zoomed in, searching for any sign that this was a misunderstanding. But there was none. His arm was around her waist. His smile was real. She clicked on the woman's profile. Claire. Recent posts filled with Daniel. Coffee dates, sunsets, a cozy-looking apartment that wasn't his. Her stomach twisted. How long had this been going on? She scrolled back, her pulse roaring in her ears. 2 weeks ago, they had posted their first picture together. 2 weeks. The same 2 weeks, Daniel had been distant, his texts shorter, his calls rare. Evelyn's chest ached. She had trusted him, believed in him. And all this time, he had been lying. Her phone buzzed. A message. Her heart stopped. But it wasn't Daniel. It was Claire. "Hey, I think we need to talk." Chapter 4. The Voicemail. Evelyn didn't respond. She blocked Claire's account, her fingers moving on autopilot. She didn't want to hear excuses, didn't want to know the details. The truth was enough. That night, she sat on her balcony, the city lights twinkling below. She replayed Daniel's last voicemail, the one he'd left a week ago, his voice warm, affectionate. "I miss you, Evie. Just hang on a little longer. We're almost there." Almost where? To him leaving her. For someone else? Her thumb hovered over the delete button, but she didn't press it. Instead, she set the phone down and took a deep breath. She had waited long enough. Chapter 5. The Resolution. The next morning, Evelyn packed the rest of her suitcase, not for the trip to bring Daniel home, but for herself. A weekend away. Somewhere quiet, somewhere she could breathe. As she locked her apartment door, her phone buzzed one last time. Daniel's name flashed on the screen. She stared at it, her heart heavy but steady. Then she silenced the call and slipped the phone into her pocket. She didn't look back. Chapter 6. The First Clue. The phone rang for the 12th time before going to voicemail again. "Hey, it's Lila. Leave a message." The cheerful tone of her recorded voice sent a chill down Jake's spine. It was so unlike the silence that had stretched for the past 18 hours. Lila always called. Every morning, without fail, after her night shift at the hospital, she'd ring him on her walk home. Just a quick check-in. "I'm alive, don't worry," before she crashed for the day. But this morning, nothing. No call, no text. No response to his increasingly frantic messages. Jake paced his apartment, running a hand through his already disheveled hair. He had called the hospital twice. She clocked out at 7 a.m. like usual, the receptionist had said. No, she didn't mention anything unusual. So where was she? He grabbed his keys and headed out. The early autumn air was crisp, the streets still quiet. Lila's apartment was only a 15-minute walk from the hospital, a straight shot down Elm Street, then a left on Cedar, a safe route, a route she had taken hundreds of times. But when Jake reached her building, her door was locked. No answer. When he knocked, no signs of a struggle. Just silence. He fumbled for his phone again, dialing her number one more time. This time, it didn't even ring. It went straight to voicemail. "Hey, it's Lila." Jake hung up. His hands were shaking. Something was wrong. Chapter 7. The Search Begins. Jake called the police. The officer on the line was polite but dismissive. "She's an adult, sir. It hasn't even been 24 hours. "She never misses a call," Jake insisted. "Something's wrong." A sigh. "We'll file a report, but we can't do much yet." Frustration burned in his chest. If the police wouldn't help, he'd find her himself. He started retracing her steps. The hospital parking lot was empty now, just a few scattered cars belonging to the day shift. No sign of Lila's blue Honda. Had she even made it to her car? Security cameras. That was his next thought. He marched back inside, flashing his best "I belong here" smile at the front desk before slipping down the hall toward the security office. The guard, an older man with tired eyes, barely glanced up. "You got authorization for that?" Jake hesitated. "My sister's missing. She works here. I just need to see if she left last night." The guard studied him for a long moment before sighing. "Fine, but make it quick." The footage was grainy, but there she was, Lila, walking out the employee exit at 7:03 a.m., her coat pulled tight against the morning chill. She turned left toward the parking lot. Then the camera cut out. "Where's the rest?" Jake demanded. The guard frowned. "That's all we got. Lot camera's been down for a week." Jake's stomach dropped. No footage, no car, no sister. Chapter 8. The Phone. Jake was halfway home when his phone buzzed. An unknown number, his pulse spiked as he answered. "Hello?" Silence. Then, a faint shuffling, like someone adjusting their grip. "Lila?" he breathed. A voice answered, but it wasn't. "Hers, stop looking." The line went dead. Jake stood frozen on the sidewalk, his blood turning to ice. Who the hell was that? He called the number back immediately. It rang once before a robotic voice answered. "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." His hands clenched into fists. This wasn't just a disappearance. This was a warning. Chapter 9. The Journal. Lila's apartment felt colder than usual when Jake let himself in with her spare key. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator. He needed answers. Her laptop was password protected, but her journal wasn't. She kept it in her nightstand drawer, filled with scribbled notes, grocery lists, and Jake's. Breath caught. Tucked between the pages was a folded piece of paper. He opened it carefully. Numbers, dates, names he didn't recognize, and one sentence underlined twice. "If anything happens to me, it's because of Project Blackwood." Jake's mind raced. What the hell was Project Blackwood? He flipped through. More pages, finding scattered references. "They're watching. Can't trust anyone. Need to tell Jake." Tell him what? His phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time, he hesitated before answering. "You're not listening." The same voice from before hissed. "Stop digging." Jake's grip tightened. "Where's my sister?" A low chuckle. "You really don't want to know." The call ended. Jake stared at the phone, his fear hardening into something else. Rage. Chapter 10. The Call. 3 days passed with no sign of Lila. Jake had gone to the police again, this time with the journal. They took it seriously now. Too seriously. A detective questioned him for hours, asking if Lila had been involved in anything illegal, if she had enemies. "No," Jake snapped. "She's a nurse. She helps people." But the detective's expression told him everything. They thought she was involved in something bad. Jake refused to believe it. Then, on the 4th night, his phone rang. Lila's number. His heart slammed against his ribs as he answered. "Lila!" Silence. Then, a scream, raw, terrified, unmistakably hers. "Lila!" Jake shouted. "Where are you?" The scream cut off abruptly, then that same voice from before, calm and cold. "You should have listened." The line went dead. Jake's. Hands shook as he dialed 911, his voice breaking as he spoke. "My sister's been taken." But deep down, he already knew. It was too late. Chapter 11. The echo of silence. The apartment had become a prison. Thomas sat at his kitchen table, the same spot he'd occupied for days, his laptop open to the same empty inbox. The job application, senior financial analyst at Veyron Dynamics, had been sent 3 weeks ago. The recruiter, a woman named Mira, had responded within hours. "Impressive credentials, Thomas. We'll be in touch soon." Soon. That word had unraveled him. He checked his phone again. No missed calls, no voicemails. He refreshed his email. Nothing. The silence was unbearable. His reflection in the microwave door caught his eye. Sunken cheeks, dark circles under. His eyes. When was the last time he'd slept? He couldn't remember. His fingers drummed against the table. Maybe he should call them. No, that would seem desperate. But what if they'd lost his number? What if his email had gone to spam? He opened his call log, scrolled through the dozens of outgoing calls he'd made to himself, just to hear his voicemail greeting, just to make sure his phone was working. It always was. The silence wasn't a technical error. It was rejection. Chapter 12. The first. Hallucination. The phone rang. Thomas's heart lurched. He snatched it up, barely registering the unknown number before answering. Hello? Static. Then a voice. Distant, garbled. Mr. Carter? His breath hitched. Yes, this is Thomas Carter. We'd like to offer you the position. The words sent a jolt through him. Finally. Thank you, he stammered. When do I start? What's the... The line went dead. Thomas stared at the phone. Had that just happened? He called back immediately. The number you have dialed is not in service. His stomach dropped. But no, it had rung. He had answered. He hadn't imagined. It had he? Chapter 13. The research. Sleep was impossible now. Thomas paced his apartment, his mind racing. Maybe the call had been real. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe the recruiter had dialed from a bad line. He opened his laptop again, typing Veyron Dynamics into the search bar. The website was sleek, professional. A corporate headquarters in the city, employee testimonials, a careers page with the same job listing he'd applied to. Everything checked out, but then a buried forum post from a year ago. Has anyone heard of Veyron Dynamics? Got an offer, but something feels off. Thomas clicked on it. The thread was short. Only a few replies. Scam. They'll ask for your SSN up front. Fake company. His hands shook. No, that couldn't be right. The website was too polished. The recruiter had been so professional. He refreshed the page. The forum post was gone. Chapter 14. The second call. The phone rang again at 3 a.m. Thomas grabbed it, his voice raw. Hello? Thomas. A woman's voice, smooth, familiar. This is Mira from Veyron Dynamics. His pulse roared in his ears. Yes, hi. I think we got disconnected earlier. We need you to come in tomorrow. Relief flooded him. Of course. What time? 9 a.m. Bring your ID, social security card, and banking details for payroll setup. A beat. Something cold slithered down his spine. Banking details? Is that standard? He asked slowly. Silence. Then, don't you want the job, Thomas? The line went dead. Chapter 15. The Truth. He didn't sleep. By sunrise, he had dug deeper. Reverse image searches on the company's team photos. Domain registration records. All fake. The office. Address? A vacant lot. The phone number? A burner. The job? A scam. Thomas sat back, his breath coming in short gasps. He'd been waiting for nothing. The calls, the hallucinations, had been his own mind torturing him. His phone buzzed. Another unknown number. He answered, his voice hollow. Hello? Static, then laughter, guttural, cruel. You really thought we'd hire you? The call ended. Thomas dropped the phone. He didn't pick it up again. Chapter 16. The Unanswered Calls. The phone rang again. Ethan stared at the screen. Dad. And let it go to voicemail. Again. I'll call him tomorrow. That's what he always told himself. Tomorrow. Always tomorrow. There was never time today. Work was too busy. His friends were expecting him. He was tired. 100 excuses, each one paper thin, but stacked together they formed a wall between him and the man who had raised him. He silenced his phone and tossed it onto the couch. The apartment was too quiet. The clock on the wall ticked too loudly. He poured himself a drink, the ice clinking like a countdown. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a voice whispered, "One day, there won't be a tomorrow." He ignored it. Chapter On 17, the call that never came. 3 days passed. Ethan didn't realize how long it had been until he glanced at his phone and saw no missed calls. No voicemails. Nothing. Strange. His father always called. Even when Ethan ignored him, even when weeks went by without a response, his dad would leave another message. "Just checking in, son. Hope you're doing okay. Call me when you can." But now, silence. Ethan frowned. He scrolled through his call log. The last attempt had been 4 days ago. Had his dad finally given up? A cold knot settled in his stomach. He dialed the number. It rang, and rang, and rang. No answer. He's probably just busy. But his father was retired. He was never too busy to answer. Ethan hung up. "I'll try again later." Chapter 18. The Knock at the Door. Later never came. Instead, there was a knock. Ethan opened the door to find his aunt standing there, her face pale, her eyes red-rimmed. He knew before she spoke. "Ethan, it's your dad." The world tilted. No, 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 no. He had a heart attack last night. He's gone. Gone. The word didn't make sense. His father couldn't be gone. He was supposed to call. He was supposed to leave another voicemail. He was supposed to be there, waiting, always waiting, for Ethan to finally pick up. But now there would be no more calls, no more tomorrows. Chapter 19. The Voicemails. The funeral was a blur. Ethan stood in the cemetery, numb, as people he barely remembered offered hollow condolences. "He loved you so much. He talked about you all the time." He wanted to scream. If they knew that, why hadn't they told him? Why hadn't they made him see? After the last mourner left, Ethan sat in his car, staring at his phone. He opened his voicemail inbox. "Hey, Ethan. Just wanted to hear your voice. Call me back when you can. Son, it's been a while. I miss you. I know you're busy, but, well, I'd love to talk." Message after message after message. Years of them. Years of his father reaching out and Ethan never reaching back. His thumb hovered over the last one, the final voicemail, left the night before the heart attack. He pressed play. "Ethan." A pause, a shaky breath. "I don't know if you'll listen to this, but I wanted to say I love you, no matter what, and I'm proud of you." Silence. Then, "I just wish I'd heard your voice one more time." The message ended. Ethan sat there shaking, the weight of every missed call crushing him. He'd give anything now to hear the phone ring, but it never would again. Chapter 20. The Last Goodbye. That night, Ethan dialed his father's number one last time. He knew no one would answer, but he needed to say it. "Hey, Dad." His voice broke. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." The line was silent. No reply. No forgiveness. Just the empty space where a voice should have been. Ethan closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, he spoke to his father like he should have all along. He told him everything. Chapter 21. The First Misdial. The phone rang just as Claire was pouring herself a third glass of wine. She lunged for it, nearly knocking over the bottle in her haste. Finally. Jason was calling. 3 hours late, but at least he hadn't. Completely ghosted her. She swiped to answer without checking the number. "So you do remember I exist?" She snapped. A pause. Then, is this the Pizza Palace?" A man's voice, deep, confused, definitely not. "Jason." Claire groaned. "No, this is not the Pizza Palace." Oh, shit, sorry. She hung up before he could say anything else, tossing her phone onto the couch with a growl. Of course. It wasn't Jason. Of course, it was some idiot who couldn't dial properly. She glared at her silent phone. Where the hell was he? Chapter 22. The second and third. Misdial. An hour later, the phone rang again. Claire snatched it up, heart pounding, but the caller ID showed the same unknown number as before. She answered with a sigh. Still not the Pizza Palace. Yeah, I figured, the stranger said. But, I dialed the same number twice, so I think maybe your number is just really close to theirs? Claire pinched the bridge of her nose. Or maybe you just can't read. A beat. Then, laughter. Warm, unoffended. Fair point, he admitted. Sorry again. She hung up. 10 minutes later, her phone buzzed. For the love of God, she barked into the receiver. I swear I typed it right this time, the stranger said, sounding genuinely baffled. Are you sure you're not a pizza place? Claire opened her mouth to unleash a torrent of rage and then burst out laughing. Chapter 23. The Vent. So let me get this straight, the stranger, Liam, as he'd finally introduced himself, said. You're waiting for some guy who stood you up and instead you're stuck talking to an idiot who can't order a damn pepperoni? Pretty much, Claire muttered, swirling her wine. Wow, your night sucks. Tell me about it. A pause. Then, want to rant about it? I've got nothing better to do, and honestly, I owe you for yelling at me 3 times. Claire hesitated, but the wine had loosened her tongue, and the silence of her apartment was suddenly unbearable. So she ranted. Chapter 24. The Unexpected Confidant. 2 hours later, Claire realized she was still on the phone. Somehow, the conversation had spiraled from Jason's a flaky asshole to Mike, my boss is trying to kill me with spreadsheets, to I once cried in a grocery store because they were out of my favorite cereal. And Liam? Liam listened. Not just the polite, of someone waiting for their turn to talk. Really listened, laughed at her terrible jokes, told her about his disastrous dates, admitted he'd been calling for pizza because his ex had taken the microwave in the breakup. Who takes the microwave? Claire gasped. A monster, Liam said solemnly. A cold, hungry monster. She was laughing so hard she almost didn't. Notice her phone buzzing with another call. Jason begged finally. She stared at the screen, her laughter fading. You should get that, Liam said quietly. Claire hesitated, then declined the call. Nah, she said. He can wait. Chapter 25. The Right, Wrong Number. Jason never called back. Claire didn't care, because the next night her phone rang again, same wrong number, and this time she answered with a grin. Pizza Palace, how can I help you? Liam's laughter was better than any apology from Jason could have been. So, he said, hypothetically, if a guy messed up your night by being terrible at dialing, how would he make it up to you? Hypothetically? Claire teased. Totally hypothetically. She smiled. Well, he'd better start with dinner. Pizza? God, no. Liam laughed, and for the first time in weeks, Claire didn't feel like waiting for a call. She wanted to pick up. Chapter 26. The Waiting Room. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a sterile glow over the empty chairs. Rachel sat rigid in the corner of the surgical ward waiting room, her fingers clenched around her phone. The screen was dark. No notifications, no updates. 8 hours. 8 hours since they'd wheeled Daniel into the OR. 8 hours of silence. A nurse had come by once, 4 hours ago, to say things were proceeding as expected. A meaningless phrase. What did expected Even mean, expected to live, expected to die. Rachel's throat tightened. She stared at the wall clock, watching the second hand tick forward with agonizing slowness. Every minute stretched into an eternity. She should have asked more questions, should have demanded hourly updates. But when the surgeon, a tall man, with tired eyes, had explained the risks before the operation, she had just nodded numbly, her mind stuck on one phrase. There's a chance he might not make it off the table. Now, alone in the too quiet room, those words echoed in her skull. Her phone buzzed. She nearly dropped it in her haste to check. A text from her sister. Any news? Rachel swallowed hard. No, still waiting. She locked the screen again, her heart pounding. Why wouldn't they call? Chapter 27. The Spiral. By hour 10, Rachel's thoughts had turned treacherous. What if something had gone wrong and they weren't telling her? What if they were waiting for a social worker or a chaplain to deliver the news? She'd heard of that happening. Families being left in the dark until the last possible moment. She stood abruptly, pacing the length of the room. The coffee she'd drunk earlier churned in her stomach. She should find someone. Demand answers. But what if the second she stepped away, the surgeon came looking for her? She sank back into the chair, her knees weak. A memory flashed. Daniel, just that morning, squeezing her hand before they took him away. I'll see you soon, he'd said, as if he were just going out for groceries. Not lying down on a table where his chest would be cracked open, his heart stopped, his life balanced on the edge of a scalpel. Rachel pressed the heels of her hands into her eyes. Please, just let him live. Chapter 28. The False Alarm. Hour 12. The door swung open. Rachel's head snapped up, her breath catching, but it was just a janitor pushing a mop bucket. He gave her a sympathetic nod before disappearing down the hall. Her shoulders slumped. She checked her phone again. Nothing. The battery was at 15%. She hadn't brought a charger. What if it died before? No, she wouldn't think like that. A noise made her turn. Two nurses murmured to each other at the station outside the waiting room. One glanced at her, then quickly looked away. Rachel's stomach dropped. That glance, it meant something. Something bad. She stood, her legs unsteady. She had to ask, had to know. But before she could move, her phone rang, an unknown number. Her hands shook as she answered. Mrs. Lawson? A woman's voice, professional, calm. Yes, that's me. This is Dr. Hayes' assistant. He'd like to speak with you in person. Can you come to the consultation room next to the OR? Rachel's vision blurred. They never called. Unless it was over. Unless it was bad. Chapter 29. The Walk. The hallway stretched endlessly. Rachel's footsteps echoed as she followed the signs to the consultation room, her pulse roaring in her ears. This was it. The moment she'd been dreading. Why else would they want to talk in person? She passed a gurney, a stack of linens, a cart of medical supplies, all of it blurring together. Her fingers trailed along the wall for balance. The consultation room. Door was slightly ajar. She pushed it open. Dr. Hayes stood inside, still in his scrubs, his mask pulled down. His expression was unreadable. Rachel's knees threatened to buckle. Tell me, she whispered. Chapter 30. The News. The surgery was more complicated than we anticipated. Dr. Hayes' voice was steady, but his eyes held a weight that made Rachel's breath stop. We repaired the valve, but his heart was weaker than the scan showed. He went into a rest on the table. The world tilted. We got him back, the doctor continued quickly. But he's in critical condition. We've moved him to the ICU. Rachel's hands clutched the edge of the table. Will he? The next 24 hours are crucial. Dr. Hayes hesitated. I won't lie to you, Mrs. Lawson. It's touch and go. Touch and go, a phrase that meant he might still die. Rachel's vision swam. Can I see him? The doctor nodded. She followed him out, her body moving on autopilot. The call had finally come, but the waiting wasn't over. Chapter 31. The Vigil. The ICU was a symphony of beeping machines. Daniel lay motionless in the bed, tubes snaking from his arms, his chest, his mouth. A ventilator hissed rhythmically. His skin was pale, waxy. Rachel took his hand. It was cold. You promised? You'd see me soon, she choked out. No response, just the steady blip of the heart monitor. She pressed her forehead to their joined hands, her shoulders shaking. The waiting had changed. Now she wasn't waiting for a call. She was waiting for a miracle. Chapter 32. The Whispering Hour. The digital clock on Nathan's nightstand flickered to 3:17 a.m. as if summoned by some unseen force. He hadn't slept, hadn't truly slept in weeks, not since the calls began. His body was wound tight, every muscle coiled like a spring, his blood humming with a terrible anticipation. The phone lay beside him, silent. For now. Then, the vibration. A slow, deliberate pulse against the wood, not the cheerful chirp of an incoming call, but something heavier. Ominous, like the toll of a funeral bell. Nathan's hand hovered over the device. The caller ID burned into his retinas. Mom, home. His mother's landline. The one he'd disconnected himself after her funeral. The one that should have been dead and buried along with her. Static erupted the moment he swiped to answer. A torrent of white noise that filled the room like a living thing. The air grew thick, charged with the scent of ozone and something else, something organic and wet, like turned earth after a storm. And then, beneath the chaos of the static, ate. Her voice, or something wearing its shape. It slithered through the noise, syllables stretched and warped, as if dragged through dimensions to reach him. Nathan's breath came in shallow gasps. Mom? He whispered, his own voice alien to him. What do you want? The static surged, swallowing. Her reply. For a heartbeat, there was nothing. Then a wet, choking gasp, the sound of fingernails scraping against the mouthpiece, and a single, shuddering word. Leaston. The line went dead. Chapter 33. The Unraveling. Nathan sat. In the dark long after the call ended, the phone still clutched in his hand. His skin was clammy, his shirt damp with sweat. Rational thought had abandoned him. There were no more excuses left, no glitches, no pranks. This was real, and it was getting worse. He stumbled to his home office, where the walls were papered with his frantic research, newspaper clippings of strange phenomena, printouts about electronic voice phenomena, a map of the town with dates and times marked in red, every call, every whisper, and at the center of it all, his mother's phone records. He'd requested them weeks ago, desperate for answers. The pages were creased from how often he'd handled them, certain he'd missed something. But the truth was there, buried in the final column of the last page. Last outgoing call, 3:17 a.m., duration, 1 minute. Recipient, Nathan's cell. The night she died. Nathan's vision swam. She'd called him. In those final, gasping moments of her heart attack, she'd tried to reach him, and he'd slept through it. The guilt was a physical weight, crushing. His ribs, a new thought slithered into his mind. What if she's not calling from the past? What if she's calling from the moment of her death, over and over again, forever? His phone rang. Chapter 34. The Truth in Static. Nathan didn't wait for 317 this time. He answered on the first ring, pressing the device to his ear. With trembling hands, the static was different now, deeper, layered. Beneath the hiss, he could hear things, distant screams, the hollow bang of a screen door swinging in the wind, a familiar creak of floorboards, the third step from the top in his mother's house, the one that always groaned, and her voice, clearer than ever. "Nate, you have to—" A gurgle, a thud, then another voice, his own. "Don't pick up," it whispered, raw with terror. "If you pick up, you'll hear how she died, and then you'll start calling yourself too." The line went dead. In the silence that followed, Nathan understood. This wasn't a call from the past, it was a call from the future, his future, and the cycle was just beginning. Chapter 35. The Final Ring. The phone rang again at dawn. Nathan didn't move. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at the device as it shrieked against the wood. He knew what would happen if he answered, knew where this led. But some part of him, the part that still remembered her hands smoothing his hair, her voice singing, him to sleep, needed to hear her one last time. He answered. The static was gone. For one crystal-clear moment, he heard her, really heard her, not a whisper, not a ghost, his mother as she'd been in life. "I love you," she said. Then the line clicked, and in the silence Nathan began to weep. Chapter 36. The Silent Safe House. The safe house smelled of mildew and old blood. Kai Vasiliev pressed his back against the crumbling plaster wall, his Glock 19 slick in his grip. Outside, the Belgrade night pulsed with the distant wail of police sirens, closer than they'd been an hour ago. The extraction window had closed 17 minutes ago. No call, no signal, just the hollow static of his earpiece and the too loud thud of his own heartbeat. They're not coming. The realization slithered through his ribs like a knife. His handlers had burned him. Kai's gaze flicked to the Nokia burner phone on the wooden crate beside him. Dark, lifeless. The agency's last standing order pulsed behind his eyes. Wait for the call, no matter what. But the call wasn't coming, and the footsteps on the stairwell were. Chapter 37. The First Rule of Tradecraft. 3 floors below, a door creaked. Kai was moving before the sound finished echoing, pocketing the Nokia, shrugging on his ruined tactical vest. The safe house had 2 exits, the compromised stairwell and the rusted fire escape outside the bedroom window. Both would be watched. He crouched beside the cracked window, peeling back the moth-eaten curtain. The alley below swam in and out of focus through the grimy glass. Shadows moved where shadows shouldn't. The glint of a rifle scope winked from the rooftop across the street. Professional. Not Serbian police. Not local muscle. Company men. Kai's jaw tightened. Langley had sent a sanitization team. The Nokia vibrated against his thigh. His breath hitched. A single text glowed on the cracked screen. "Check your 6." Kai spun, just as the door exploded inward. Chapter 38. The Language of Gunfire. The first bullet took the wall where his head had been. Kai returned fire through the smoke. The Glock's report deafening in the confined space. A grunt, a thud, one silhouette down. He was moving before the body hit the floor, rolling toward the bedroom, firing blind behind him. Plaster rained from the ceiling as suppressed rounds chewed through the doorway. The Nokia buzzed again in his pocket. No time. The fire escape groaned under his weight as he kicked out the window. Winter air razored his face. 3 stories down, the alley yawned like an open grave. Another buzz. Another text. "They're in your head." Kai's blood turned to ice. That wasn't Langley's syntax. That wasn't anyone's. Syntax. A shadow detached itself from the rooftop opposite. The sniper's rifle flashed. Chapter 39. The Ghost in the Machine. The round caught him in the shoulder, a white-hot brand searing through muscle. Kai barely felt the impact of the Awai dumpster as he hit the alley floor. The Nokia skittered across the pavement, screen cracked but still glowing. Another text. You were never the asset. You were the mission. Blood slicked Kai's fingers as he dragged himself toward the phone. The truth was coalescing now, ugly and inevitable. The botched extraction, the sanitization team, the messages. They hadn't sent him to retrieve the data, they'd sent him to deliver it. The Nokia's screen flickered. A final message. She says hello, by the way. An image loaded, grainy black and white surveillance, still. His sister, sitting in a cafe in Lyon. Dated today. Kai's world narrowed to the pulse of the sniper's laser sight dancing across his chest. Chapter 40. The Sound of Silence. The rifle never fired. By the time the sniper realized his scope's glint had given him away, Kai's knife was already buried in his throat. The Nokia lay abandoned in the alley, its screen still, glowing with the image of a woman who'd been dead for 3 years. Kai didn't look back as he vanished into the Belgrade underworld, the weight of his sidearm a comfort against his ribs. Let them listen. Let them wait. He'd make his own calls now. Chapter 41. The 1327th sunrise. The alarm clock blared at precisely 7:03 a.m. Eleanor's eyes snapped open, her body rigid with the familiar, suffocating dread. The same pale morning light filtered through the same half-drawn curtains. The same faint smell of coffee from the apartment below. The same ache behind her left temple where she'd hit her head on the bathroom sink. 3 loops ago, or was it 4? She'd lost count. She lay there, counting the cracks in the ceiling. 11. Always 11, until her heartbeat slowed. Then, with the practiced resignation of someone who had done this 1,000 times before, she reached for the phone on her nightstand. No missed calls, no voicemails, just the date glaring up at her in bold, mocking letters. October 14th. Again. Chapter 42. The Ritual of Madness. The shower was scalding hot. Eleanor stood under the spray until her skin turned red, as if the pain could somehow anchor her to reality. She'd tried cold showers, lukewarm showers, no showers at all. It didn't matter. The loop reset anyway. She dressed mechanically. Black jeans, gray sweater, the same outfit she'd worn for the last 47 iterations. She'd experimented with different clothes once, just to see if it would change anything. It hadn't. The kitchen was a graveyard of half-finished experiments. A notepad lay open on the counter, filled with increasingly frantic scribbles. Day 214. Jumped off roof. Woke up again. Day 892. Told Sarah the truth. She didn't believe me. Day 103. Broke into the phone company. Nothing. Eleanor poured coffee into the same chipped mug and stared at the landline phone hanging on the wall. It never rang before noon. Chapter 43. The Theories. By midday, Eleanor was pacing her apartment, her mind spiraling through the same old theories. Was this purgatory? Had she died in some mundane accident, slipped in the shower, choked on her breakfast, and now she was stuck reliving her last day for eternity? Or was it something else? A glitch in the universe? A science experiment gone wrong? She'd spent entire loops researching time loops, reading every article, watching every movie, even calling physicists at universities, who either hung up on her or suggested she seek psychiatric help. None of it mattered, because no matter what she did, no matter how hard she tried to deviate from the script, The loop always reset, and the phone never rang. Chapter 44, The Breaking Point. On the 1327th iteration, Eleanor snapped. She stormed into the living room, grabbed the landline phone from its cradle, and hurled it against the wall. It shattered into pieces, plastic, shards skittering across the floor. "What do you want from me?" She screamed at the empty room. Silence. She sank to her knees, her breath coming in ragged gasps. And then, a sound, a faint, electronic chirp. Eleanor froze. The broken phone, the shattered pieces, one of them was ringing. Chapter 45. The Answer. With trembling hands, Eleanor picked up the largest fragment of the phone. The screen was cracked, but a single word blinked in the corner. Calling. No number. No caller ID. Just that word. She pressed the fragment to her ear. Static hissed through, the line thick and oppressive. Then a voice, not from the phone, but from inside her head. It was never supposed to ring. Eleanor's blood turned to ice. The voice was hers. Chapter 46. The Truth. The static dissolved into whispers, hundreds of them, overlapping, all her own voice. You're not waiting for a call. You're avoiding one. You know what you did. Memories flooded her. Real memories, not the loop's script. The hospital room, the beeping monitor, the doctor's grim face, her mother's. Last words, "Promise me you'll call your sister," and Eleanor's silence. She'd never made the call, and now she was trapped in this day, the last day before her mother's funeral, forever. Chapter 47. The End of the Loop. Eleanor woke to the sound of the alarm. 3 a.m., but this time, she didn't count the cracks in the ceiling. This time, she picked up the phone and dialed her sister's number. The line connected, and for the first time in 1328 loops, the world moved forward.